Well, let's get it. For those of you who are new, I don't always have a cowboy hat on, but it's sick, right? No, for those of you who are new, what this is a morning sales flow. The whole purpose of it is to come together. It's completely free to absolutely anybody. Sales reps who want to just be better, refine their craft. Sales leaders who want to refine their craft and develop stuff that they can take back and go train with their teams on, or invite their teams to these things, or business owners who want to get off of off of the phones and start building a sales team. So completely open to absolutely anybody and everybody. We've got business owners here in this room. We've got reps in this room. We've got managers right now in this room. And so again, the whole purpose of it is to get you into a flow state. And hi, Trisha, how are you?
Hey guys, how are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
And does everybody know what flow state is? I know a couple of you were here the other day, but yeah, Christian, what flow state is? What's the definition you've heard?
The way I look at it is it's when you are you aren't having to think, you're not self-conscious, you're just in the process of doing the thing you're just acting like coming from like an overlearned state.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a technical term actually, and it's the optimal state of consciousness. Right? It's exactly like Christian said, when you're in the zone where everything is easy, where you're fulfilled, where you're just firing on all cylinders, you don't have to think about it. You're just locked in. So what we try to do on all of our sales meetings with all of the sales teams that we manage is induce that flow state for everybody that's around. The great thing about doing that on the sales team is that everything converges at sales, right? So everybody here who is a part of a sales team is not only that first impression in that front line to the business. So marketing's converging at sales, but so is fulfillment, right? And so if you can get into flow state, and that's the catalyst, right, to start the workday, right? That will permeate throughout the whole company. As sales come in, you're celebrating sales, you're having fun, right? So not to repeat myself too much, you guys can probably catch the recordings. I'm not sure how we're going to do that for this, but when it comes to flow state, there's a few things that are really necessary. One, you got to be in this really kind of curious place. There's this kind of this lane, this window where things are challenging, right? But they're also really exciting and you're curious about it and you're pushing to that next level. But they're not so challenging to where you feel completely defeated, right? It's also fun, right? But it's not so fun that it's just comfortable, that it's just easy, right? It's got to be challenging. It's got to be fun, right? And it has to be meaningful to you. So if you can combine curiosity, which is exciting and it's a great thing to translate into your sales calls, with passion, having fun, and a sense of meaning that you're doing something important and bigger than yourself and having an impact. If you can combine those things, you can tap into that flow state almost on demand. And a few different things that we'll do, I can explain them as we go, but I'll do a few different things to kind of induce some of that flow state. One, I encourage everybody who is here to have their camera on, because sales, everything is an energy transfer, right? And I mean, think about it, right? You've all recorded some content before. When you're talking in front of people, it's much easier to have a lot of energy, right? And especially when that energy gets reciprocated, right? So this meeting isn't necessarily at all about me. This meeting is about the collective energy here, right? Because my role as a leader, as a sales manager, as a business owner, and what y'all's roles should be is to facilitate that environment for that growth to take place, facilitate that environment for that flow state to take place. Does that make sense? Nate, what's going on, brother?
What's going on?
We've been doing some sales meetings together. Can you talk to everybody here kind of about the experience and kind of that flow state that you've experienced perhaps?
As far as going on the calls or the daily meetings?
Yeah, the daily meetings and just how it translates into your day.
Well, kind of just Keeps you up to date on like what the activity is like and kind of like what everyone else is doing around you, and kind of just keeping that competitive edge too. You know, if you see someone, you know, hitting a certain target, kind of motivates you to like beat them. So it just brings more engagement into it.
That's right. That's right. That competitiveness is part of that challenge, right? And so by us, one of the things we do every day on our sales meetings is we go through activity. The reason why we do that is because if you know you're hearing all your peers say their activity and you're consistently at the bottom, you're going to get exposed. That's going to be a little bit of embarrassment, right? That's going to be a prey drive activator. That's going to be a challenge for you, right? Appreciate that, Nate. All right, what do you guys? What's hot? You guys dealing with any objections? You guys, in our world, we break things down into skill, process, and people, right? The most important being the individual, because the processes will only be as good as the people operating those processes, right? The skill
And I've
will
got
only get.
one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we've got our inbound team is dialed in. Our closer is really well dialed in. We're struggling with the outbound team, creating just more engaging conversations. And we have probably right now, maybe somewhere around $1,500 a day coming in on ad spend. So 2 outbound setters, the volume is probably somewhere around 100 leads a day. So like 3,000, I think we did 4,000 total leads last month. So that'll give you plenty of leads, but not a lot of conversions. So they're converting probably 3 sets a day.
Okay.
Clarity call set, or what we would call triage call set. And so we really want that activity doubled. That's the biggest challenge we're having.
Cool. So I hear a couple of things here. It could be one of two things: skill, or sounds like the process is relatively dialed and it's just a matter of activity or conversion.
Yeah.
So it's either people problem or a skill problem. Which one do you think it is?
I think I have one people problem, and then one is fairly new. So it's bringing them up to speed on skill.
I agree. I would dissect that the same way. I would say that one, it's a buy-in problem. If you having to force activity, there's so many ways I could take this part right here.
Yeah, because the one brand new one in 2 weeks is setting at the level of the experienced one that's been here 4 months.
Got you. So I'll give you the how to get them to buy in first, and then I'll give you the skill development that I think where I would look to see. The first thing is to get them to buy in. One, not to beat a dead horse, but it starts with how you hire them. If you're sourcing them from recruiting agencies, you're paying for reps, you're treating them like a job, right? You're going to get one level of commitment out of them. If you're getting people who really want to be a part of your organization, are committed to the mission, the vision, the values, their long-term vision is aligned, you're going to get a lot more natural commitment, natural buy-in, natural effort. That's one. Number two, get the person, whoever is the top dog in terms of results, right? Get that person bought into it prior to rolling it out to the rest of the team, whatever the initiative is. If you can get somebody to champion an idea for you, right, or highlight the success of that person in front of everybody, to Nate's point earlier, it creates a little competitive, a little collaboration, right? It's like, hey, this person's on my team, but I'm losing here, right? And then a lot of people are driven by recognition. And so if you're celebrating that other person who's doing what you want and you're not celebrating the other person, maybe that other person will start to feel a type of way, right? So really comes down to the relationship that you have with them and understanding what everybody's driven differently. Some people are driven impact. Some people are driven by recognition. Some people are driven by the dollars, which the third thing, a lot of people are driven by dollars, which just depends on how much they are. So anytime we're trying to get someone to buy into something, we always bring it back to their bottom line. We show them the math and it makes it very obvious for them. It's like, hey, look, here's what we're doing based on this. Here's what you guys are doing right now. Here's the opportunity we have in front of us. Even if we just did this much more, this is what it would result in your bottom line.
Yeah, and Sean, I wonder if it can be a comp issue too, because we have one. So the problem with the more senior person kind of setting the pace for the other is our more senior person moved to our inbound team, so they're no longer doing it anymore. So now you've got this kind of person who was getting pretty decent results, but as soon as we removed their like daily mentor, and they're such a drag on everybody else's time because they have 1,000 questions during the day on like, really, really simple things.
Yeah.
So there's not somebody to set that pace, but we're also just paying her by the hour. And I wonder if the
Oh,
adjustment of the dollar.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, so
You pay by the hour, you get hourly work.
yeah. Yeah, so I wonder if we need to really make that adjustment, and maybe you can just give just a quick framework on comp for that outbound.
Yeah. What I would do, you could do some sort of base because it's a high level of activity. You could do base plus commission, right? Or base plus bonus based off of a couple of different things. You could do it based off of results in terms of sales, or you could do it based off of certain activity KPIs. Like if you hit this much, you get a bonus. You just got to make sure that those activities are being being fruitful.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different ways you could do that. I'd have to really dive into the numbers of your business and see what you're paying them now and see how much they're bringing in. There's like Chad said, there's so many layers of that.
Yeah.
That's a little much for this call.
Yeah, sure.
But I will talk about open-ended questions because I think that is another way that's going to get really good engagement, increase your show up rate on triage calls. So if any of you guys are doing setting calls, one of the concepts that we often talk about is pre-call conversations versus pre-call confirmations. Confirmations is just like, hey, here's our appointment. Are you going to be there? Cool. And then you normally don't talk to them after that. If you're doing that, you're going to have a higher show up rate. You're missing out on a lot of opportunity to build a connection and rapport prior to getting on the call. And third, you're missing out on the opportunity to potentially remove them from your calendar if they're not a quality lead prior to that appointment so that you can open up that spot for somebody else to be in that spot. So this is really, really, really important. One of the ways that we get pre-call conversations going versus pre-call confirmations is we make sure that we are always the last to text back or message back or call back, right? So if you go into inside of close we use obviously, and you go last communication is inbound, that should be empty. We don't want any inbound communication that goes untouched. I don't care if they're saying thank you. You're saying you're welcome back, right? The other thing is open-ended questions. So instead of yes or no questions, hey, is that time still a good time for our call? It's a yes or no question. That conversation is not going anywhere, right? Versus an open-ended question that, hey, looking forward to our call at 8 a.m. Pacific. By the way, how long have you been investing in this? How long has this been? Where's the business at right now? How's X, Y, and Z going for you so far? What was it that stood out to you? What made you, get the conversation going? Ask these open-ended questions, and you should have at least probably 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 text messages, if not a couple phone calls back and forth with that person prior to that appointment that's even happened.
Yeah. Last question, Sean. What is a reasonable amount of sets per day for that kind of lead flow?
I'd have to look at historical data because I don't know about how effective the leads are or how effective the lead flow is, what those conversations are like. This is where we really, Trisha, we dive, like Christian can tell you, we're able to dive with him a little bit deeper. He's inside of our leader circle. We understand all of his business, the numbers, what it looks like, the lead flow, the lead sources, so that we can have better answers for you. I'd be doing you injustice if I just gave you a general answer, because there's a gray area in everything, right?
Yes. Okay.
Cool. But
Super
happy to go deeper.
Yeah.
What else are you guys facing? That was some good stuff right there.
So I just hired an outbounder. Yeah, we have a couple killers on our sales team, and we want to make sure that their calendar's packed out. So we hired an outbounder to add additional calls each week. In order to set them up for success, we had an outbounder before, and sometimes, effort levels can vary and results vary. Imagine that, right? So to set this new guy up for success, he literally starts today. What are some recommendations that we can kind of get him hit the ground running as quickly as possible? We already have access to that whole sales resource portal that I told you I built out. So he's got all the information. How do we get him into action and get him succeeding as quickly as possible?
Yep, 100%. The number one thing that anybody can do to get up to speed, improve their skill, and practice is listen to calls, listen to successful calls. So yeah, more of that, more listening to calls. Like we say it all the time, just like athletes, right? I mean, I remember played college football, we were watching 5-6 hours of film a day, right? Yeah. So
Wow.
that's the practice though. This is a practice, just like a lawyer has a practice, doctor has a practice, is a sales practice.
Okay. That's huge.
Yeah.
On it.
That's really it. It's don't overcomplicate it. Have him listen to a bunch of calls. And then I would do a couple mock calls with him and then give him opportunity where the lowest hanging fruit, or not the lowest hanging fruit, where the lowest, the least expensive lead is.
Definitely. Okay. So that'll be the fresh leads, not the ones that are like closer towards a 15 or a 45 or something like that.
No, I'm saying give him the lead. I'm not sure how you describe that, but give him the leads that aren't your most expensive leads. If your cost per lead is,
Okay.
$300, give him the lead sort that is producing the $70 cost per lead.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Good stuff. Joel, I'm curious, what are you doing in the sales world? You leading a team? You selling stuff yourself, or what are you doing?
Oh, I run the parts department of an automotive dealership.
Sick.
So sales is a little bit different for us. Sorry, my camera's not working. I'll
You're
get out of things. So actually in-house sales is not as much. What we struggle with more is the wholesale parts market. So selling to other shops in town.
Okay.
So really,
What's the number one thing you struggle with there?
you know what? It's not really much of a struggle. What we are doing.
Oh, I thought you, my bad. I misunderstood.
Oh, well, I mean, it is a struggle just because we're the new people in town.
Got you.
My store is 3 years old. Most stores are over 10 years old in town.
Mhm.
So getting that business, but what we do very well is our customer service. And that's
Huge.
how we're taking over.
Yeah. That's a great point, man. Hormozy talks about that a lot, and it's very true. A great product, a great offer, great fulfillment makes sales easier. Great marketing makes sales easier. Great sales makes marketing easier.
Yeah.
But definitely a great product transcends all of that.
Absolutely.
Good stuff, man. Any thoughts or any questions or what was your motivation for hopping on here? Besides maybe seeing your cousin.
I always want to be better. So if I can learn, even if I only learn one thing, that was worth the time. So
Love it, man. I just love that attitude. You know who is a killer on here who probably has something they could teach us is the girl at the bottom on my screen, at least, Samantha Harris. She is fantastic. What's up, Samantha?
Hey, sorry, I'm
doing?
in like a weird spot right now.
You're all good. You're all good. Got any wins to celebrate? What's going well?
Yeah, so this week I've just been really working on my pre-call process and like helping the people that get on calls with me like know that it's a serious opportunity. So I'm still kind of like testing all of that out, but I'm just excited to see what that's going to do for my close rate and just my show up rate too.
Yeah, what are some of the things you've been doing with the pre-call?
Yeah, so just making sure I have my non-negotiables. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't want to throw too much at them before the call and scare them from getting on the call. But I realized that I don't know if that's serving me by holding back anything. So I'm just really like being straightforward about like, these are the things I need from you. And the reason that I'm doing this is because this is a really important decision for you. And I want you to be able to put your best foot forward because you're going to have some questions for me.
Right.
So that's kind of just been my thing that I'm focusing on.
I love that. That does a few different things. That definitely, it builds trust, right? It builds trust right from the get-go, because if there wasn't anything that you needed, and if it was just like serve, this is why we talk about being the hottest chick in the bar, so to speak, right? And knowing what you have and not going around chasing everybody. But that right there is just like, hey, this is my sandbox, right? And at the end of the day, they called you for help. They called you for help. They called you for coaching. They called you for guidance. That's what you're selling, right? So if they're calling you for that, if you don't take that positioning and you just roll over and roll them the red carpet like they're the celebrity and you're not, or your world isn't, right? They are going to have the leverage. They're going to have the power. They're going to have the authority in that conversation. So I love that. That's really good stuff. Does that make sense? You guys know what I mean when I say that? Cool. Cool. Nate, what's your focus this week? What are you trying to improve?
I would say the pre-call, reaching out to them as soon as they book a call. It's been working really well, kind of engaging with them, really just a genuine conversation, kind of just instead of just flat out saying, hey, this is with so and so company. So kind of already starting a pre-conversation. So it's been really helpful.
Totally, right? That rapport is already there. So when you hop on the phone, the first thing out of your mouth isn't, hi, Nate, this is Sean with Start Virtual. Is now still a good time for our call? Right? Like sales resistance immediately, everybody, right? Versus you've already built the rapport, you've been texting, you know it's a good time for that call. And now I'm calling like I'm catching up with a friend. Nate, what's up, brother? How you doing? Right? How you been? Day off to a good start? Cool, man. Hey, I know we got a limited amount of time. What do you say we dive right in? Right? Even with that tonality and that pace in the beginning, you're kind of creating a little bit of urgency. That's good stuff, man. Let's see. Julio is doing real estate acquisitions. What's your focus this week, Julio? You're on mute, brother.
Sorry. Yeah, so same, engaging with people, creating relationships, start to fill up the pipe, for this new marketing that we're doing, turning cold leads into warm leads and then into hot leads.
So let me ask you this. What's the one thing that you can do that will make everything else you're doing easier or unnecessary?
I don't know. I'm digging into it right now and seeing what can I improve, and that's what I'm here as well,
I love
to
it, bro.
see what kind of suggestions you guys do and
Yeah. I love it. One of the things that we do every day to start our sales meetings is we go through activity, and then what's the final thing we do, Nate? Right after activity, you tell us what?
What are you grateful for?
Oh, that's at the end.
Oh, the end.
In the beginning, you rally through your activity.
Oh, learning moments,
right? We talk about our learning moments. And the reason we do that is because we want to force an awareness throughout the day. So I encourage you, Julio, to continuously ask yourself throughout the day, take inventory, right? What's going well? What's not going well? Be the observer of all of that stuff and constantly ask yourself, hey, what's the one thing I can do that by which doing so makes everything else easier or unnecessary? Because then you're getting to peeling back all the layers and get into that biggest point of leverage for yourself, right?
Yep.
It's kind of the same thing in sales calls. And that one thing that makes everything else, you guys know what that one thing that you got to get on a sales call that makes everything else easier or unnecessary? The one thing that you need to get that makes everything else easier or unnecessary is commitment. You have to get them to make a commitment. And the commitment isn't to you. It's not to spending a certain amount of money. It's not to your program. It is literally just a commitment to themselves to taking action, right? You have to get them so far to that point of resolve where it's like, I don't care if I have to go pawn my mom's car, right? Like I'm getting into this program, right? And if you can get them to that commitment, nothing else matters. So it's just kind of a byproduct of asking that question. What's the one thing I can do that makes everything else easier or unnecessary?
Don, how do you get the commitment? What's the questions?
Yes, that's a
Your
great
secrets.
That's a great question. How you get commitment is you ask matters of the heart and you create internal urgency, right? People only change for people primarily change because of pain. Some people will change for pleasure, but it's not as big of a motivator as pain, right? And so you have to find out what that is. You have to find out what their needs, wants, goals, desires, and pain points are. And you do that through asking really good questions that ask matters of the heart. How you get them to move towards making a commitment is when you're asking those matters of the heart, when you're asking those heart-based questions and those emotional anchored big reason why questions, you have to pair it with a timeline. So that's how you do it, right? You speed up the process of getting to commitment on a sales call through creating asking questions that create internal urgency. And you do that I'll give you some examples.
Yes.
Here's an example. Hey, Trisha, I'm just curious, how long has that been going on? Hey, I guess with all the free information out there, you know, between YouTube, Google, I'm just curious, like, why haven't you started yet? You know, you said this was really frustrating. I guess, like, how much longer can that really go on? Like, how much longer are you willing to accept that? If nothing changes, I mean, where's that going to put us? Right? Do you see all these questions that are heart-based paired with timelines? They're why-based questions paired with timeline. Why haven't you started yet? How much longer do you want to be experienced? How soon do you want to experience that feeling? Right? Is that making sense?
So good.
Sean, what's up?
Yeah, I'm curious how much you do that on like the qualification side of things, or do you just leave that all for setting, you know, to the close or in that like at what point do you start?
you can weave in that's a great question. You can weave in those questions anytime, right? Except you have to create the positioning to allow yourself to go into the heart. So yep, tonality is very important, Julio, 100%, right? So you have to, we talk about a universal framework, and remind me next time, and I'll go deeper into this with you guys, but set the table, touch the heart, engage the mind. You have to do it in that order, because the heart's a vulnerable, sensitive place where everybody keeps their deepest, darkest secrets and pleasures. And they're not just going to let anybody into that, right? But if you build a little bit rapport, this is why the pre-call confirmations are so important, right? Because it starts that process of opening up their heart to you before you get on the call. All right, guys, I am a minute and a half late for another meeting. Hope you guys got some value. Hope you had some fun today. And the more people that are on, the more cameras that are on, the more engagement, the more fun we're able to have, the more comfortable, the more times you guys come, the more comfortable we get. The same thing, and why we hold daily sales meetings is because culture drives everything. And if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Nate, what are you most grateful for today?
Being able to help people today.
I love it. Sean, what are you most grateful for?
My family.
Love it, man. And what's your family like? You got some kids?
No, just my wife, but
Love it. Love it. Julio, what are you grateful for?
This meeting.
Love it, man. Love it. Trisha, what are you grateful for?
That hat, Sean, is everything today.
Thank you kindly. I bought a ranch in a truck, and so I feel like I have to wear a cowboy hat.
Oh, you got to just fit the whole persona. Yeah, Sean, we're going to be coming into Leader Circle soon. So I've been just kind of getting my person through the first promo cycle, but I'm gonna get signed up with you guys.
Love it.
I'll see you in a little bit more intimate setting soon.
Yep, we can't wait to dive deeper with you. Awesome.
Okay.
Well, hope you all had a good day. Joel, what are you grateful for?
My family.
I love you, cuz.
Love you, bud.
All right, see you guys. Have a great day.
You too.